Hi students, in this video we're going to talk about gradient and how we understand it, what it is, and some of its applications. Alright, by the end of this video, students, you should be able to define gradient. You should be able to understand that the gradient of a straight line is constant, and also note that gradient can be positive, negative, zero, or even undefined. Alright, the key thing you have to remember, students, from our previous video is what a linear relation is. A linear relation is a set of coordinates or ordered pairs that form a nice straight line when plotted. Obviously a better line than that. Alright, so when it comes to gradient is a measure of how steep a line is. Another way to think about it is how far a line rises or falls each time the x value increases by 1. Now, for this line here, for example, if we want to think about our gradient, we have to think about how far does the line rise or fall each time our x value increases by 1. So, for our line here, let's look at this point here. If our x value goes up by 1, if we move 1 square right, our line rises by 1 square. So in this case, for this line we've got here, the gradient is equal to 1. Now note, I could have picked any point on that line. So I could have picked this point here. If I go 1 square across, I have to go up 1 value, or 1 square, to get back to my line. I could have picked a point up here, and same thing, 1 square across, I need to go 1 square up to get back to my line. I could have picked a point down here, 1 square across, 1 square up. Now that value of 1, that gradient, is the same for the entire line. So what that means is the gradient between any 2 points on the same line is going to be equal. So the gradient of our straight line is constant. It does not change. Any point on that line, if I go 1 square across, I always go up or down the same value to get back to that line, just like we do here in this example. So the key thing to get is the gradient of a straight line is constant. It does not change. Alright, so the gradient of a line can be positive, negative, zero, or undefined. Now our positive gradient means our line is going upwards. And that was like what we saw in the previous example. When we went 1 square across, we went 1 square upwards. So we went up 1 square. So that blue line is our positive gradient. It's got a gradient of positive 1. A negative line, a negative gradient, means we're going downwards. So that would be this red line here. So let's take our point here. If we go 1 square across, to get back to our line, we go 2 squares downwards. Negative 2, going down 2 squares. So that's our negative gradient. Our zero gradient, well, that was just a horizontal flat line. Which is our purple one here. If we go 1 square across, well, we don't go up, we don't go down, we just actually stay where we are. So we go 0 squares up or down. So that means our gradient is 0. Now, undefined is this green line we've got here. Now, why is it undefined? Well, remember for gradient, we said a gradient is a measure of how far up or down we have to go when we move 1 square right, or when x increases by 1. For this green line, I can't go 1 square across. It's just impossible. There's no way for me to go 1 square across and then reach this line. I can't go up any distance or down any distance to reach my line again. I can't get there. So a vertical line, that should be vertical. A vertical line is undefined because if I go 1 square across, I can't go up or down any distance and reach my line again. It's undefined. Alright, so but now by watching this video, you should be able to define gradient. You should be able to understand that the gradient of a straight line is constant, and also note that gradient can be positive, negative, 0, or undefined, and explain why it's some of those values.